Good day and welcome, America and beyond. I'm Tom Donahue for Tom Donahue Reports in the Briefing. 100 days and a little more in the books for second term Trump. It's just unbelievable some of the things that he says and also does or not or doesn't do. But here's one that should rock your world. And someone say, well, he kind of jokes around and, he's playing with the media. Not so fast. Trump says, I run the country and the world. I truly believe that there's at least three reasons that come to mind as to why he ran for a second term. One, stay out of jail. Okay, get out of jail card. And that worked. Number two, ego and also self-aggrandizement. There's a lot of deals being made for the country, but for the Trump family. And thirdly, and I know there's others, but these are the three that come to mind. He wants to run the country and the world, and he does favor the aristocrats and the autocrats. And so he wants to be a strong man, and he wants to have complete control and no guardrails and no checks and balances. And that's Trump. But yeah, so he actually has stated publicly with a great deal of confidence and swagger that I run the country and the world. Now, whether you're MAGA or you just favor the policies of Trump, at least to some degree, this has to be alarming, high alert, have some concern, and take stock of this. So that's one thing I wanted to cover. And then Trump says all the polls are fake, those that say that his poll ratings are sagging. And this is even Fox News, that's all across the board. There have been some reports that he has the lowest poll ratings for the first 100 days of any president in the last 100 years. I say 100 years because they weren't doing polling much earlier. And here's another one. Trump's involved with a town hall with News Nation. And there's some things I like about News Nation because it's more neutral and sometimes neutered. You do get a fair shake if you're a guest, and that even though I think it leans slightly to the right, it is a little more centric, okay? As long as a network, a station, the media can be somewhat fair, it's never going to be balanced, but at least fair-minded and gives an opportunity to be heard and to be able to finish your sentences, to be able to explain and give your answers. That's all you can truly ask for. So he was participating with his friend Bill O'Reilly, and then you got Chris Cuomo there, which is actually his show, and Stephen A. Smith, which really is a non-factor. Yeah, he says he's going to run for president potentially, possibly. Yeah, good luck with that. And people say, well, Stephen A. Smith has kind of that personality that maybe he could be the next Trump in some ways, not necessarily policy specifically. Doesn't have a chance, won't happen, and it will go nowhere. Bill O'Reilly, no credibility, and I've talked about that in past podcasts, but he did have high ratings. Trump certainly appreciates that. Everything is about celebrity. Everything's about polling, ratings, rankings, publicity. That's that. But that is, and we knew what we were getting. That's Trump. But he said, so in this town hall, he says he's made no mistakes. Now, what human being doesn't make mistakes and I'd say this, on a daily basis, if not on an hourly basis, and then you self-correct or been criticized or has been brought to your attention and you pivot and you try to do better. But I just don't like people that are egotistical, narcissistic, and can never admit to wrongdoing, can never admit to mistakes, and can't say they're sorry and ask for forgiveness. Well, it'd be a sign of weakness for Trump. No, it'd be humanity. It would be showing that you actually are empathetic, that you can express empathy, that you realize that the world does revolve around more than just you, the person, you, that singular being. So these were just some of the things that I wanted to draw attention to. But this administration is being run as actually more chaotically than the first. Now, the second is he picked those that worship him, those that are in lockstep with him, those that will be less likely to leak and that will follow and not lead. Are there some positives to that? Well, yes. I mean, his first administration, he had losers and leakers. Now he has some losers and less leakers. So you go figure. Fox News' Jennifer Griffin, who is considered a very credible reporter, says that the Trump team is incredibly unstable. And how about Mike Waltz being waltzed out of the door and right up to Manhattan for the UN job? Now, if someone is that incompetent, failing in his position, do you just move him to another seat at the table? Now they say, well, there's no table because he's going to be at the UN and out of Trump's hair, not advising him on things, just reporting back from the United Nations. And everybody realizes the national security director, advisor, is a much more prominent, more important position for our country. But nevertheless, just say bye-bye, see you later. Now, that would be a good turnstile. Remember I was talking about that revolving turnstile in the first administration, less this one, but you'll see more changes. And Hetzig, at some point, his head will be on the chopping block. I can't imagine him keeping him much longer. So anyway, this Waltz, he's the one that got everybody involved with the signal chat. Now, Hetzig was the one that gave all the information, classified, sensitive, secretive information over that chat. So he's at a cabinet meeting the day before he's let go, or at least reassigned and demoted. He's on another signal chat. So the media, I mean, here he is knowing the media is in the room for this cabinet meeting where they're all praising and honoring the king. You know, everything is praise and platitudes. They get a snapshot, a screenshot, picture of that, where it shows he's communicating with the national security team, and he's on a signal chat as he's in that cabinet meeting. It's like, and he said he would never do that again, that he would be, very careful. So that probably was the final straw. But if that's the case, what might he be on signal chats at the UN where, nearly 200 nations can tune in? I mean, it's just unbelievable. But just the sheer incompetence and the temerity of and the arrogance of these key players within the Trump sphere, and they all believe they're above the law because Trump essentially has said, no problem, we're just going to rule the world. Now, he doesn't really rule the world because if the New World Order wants him dead on arrival, it'll happen. But they thrive. Many of these New World Order figures, this global order that's run by the bankers and run by the black nobility and various underworld, super rich, off the books players and bloodline, they use chaos and division to profit and to control. So they must believe that Trump, whether Trump knows directly, probably likely not, that he's a useful idiot and tool, although they will lose some ground in some areas. But when all the focus is on Trump, and then they can be doing the dirty work in the underworld behind the scenes and out of sight, out of mind, then Trump takes the blame and they continue reaping the profits and pull the strings from behind the scenes. Now, I thought it was interesting, came up that Rubio is considered a neocon, but he's still very loyal to Trump, so it seems. And if you went back to those debates and all the nicknames and all the stuff that was going on, it's just amazing that all of a sudden he could be the loyalist running the State Department, and now he's interim, national security director or advisor. And he's got other positions and hats. Now, you probably remember, those of you that listen to my show and others on TalkStream Live, that Tammy Bruce, for many years after she left traditional terrestrial radio, her streaming platform was exclusive to TalkStream Live. She became not only a big Fox star over the last several years, then she was selected to be she's the spokesperson that deals with the media, the press secretary for Marco Rubio. So she's in a press conference, and she's actually doing a pretty good job. She had the skill set for. And they said, oh, did you know that Mike Waltz has been removed as national security advisor? She said, well, this is the first of my knowledge. So she was informed by the media. Trump didn't even directly communicate with Marco Rubio's team in advance. He put it out on social media, and the press picked up on it. And she was involved in a press conference in the middle of addressing things and answering questions, and she was out of the loop. So not good. Anyway, that's it for this briefing. I hope you appreciate the fact that I'm trying to offer more briefings and more information, and in a more consolidated, in a more timely way, and more digestible, if you will. And so that's all for the moment. Tom Donahue Reports. All right, have a great weekend.